How's it going, folks? Welcome back to another one of my creature design videos for my personal fantasy world project that I plan on turning into an actual compendium one day. And hello to all of you newcomers out there. We recently cracked 15,000 subscribers, and now we're going for that big 20K. So big shout out to all of you who have joined the community. So the three creatures you will be seeing me work on this video will be native to the region over here on my map called the Stoneforge Mountains. As you may have heard me mention in the past, what I'm going to be doing for this series from now on is designing groups of organisms that will inhabit specific locales together just to keep a common theme. And the Stoneforge Mountains, as the name suggests, is a very rocky, mountainous region. It is the homeland of the dwarves as well. The highest peaks have snow year-round, but during the winter, most of the biome gets coated in snow as well. There are large dense forests at lower elevations surrounding the mountains, as well as things such as hot springs, and of course magma-filled caverns, which is where this dragon you see me working on here will mainly inhabit. This dude is simply titled the Stoneforge Dragon, and my general concept for it was that I wanted to design a beast that was basically a living furnace. I felt like that would tie in well with the overall region since it's themed around dwarves and their proclivity to being forge masters. So some little details about this dragon that I wanted to make sure to convey was first and foremost giving it those vent-like slits along the side of its body that are used to basically regulate its internal temperatures. So what it does is it consumes these special minerals that are formed within the mines and caverns to basically stoke the flame within its belly. The more stones it stores inside, the more fire it can produce. And just as a visual cue, having smoke just seeping out through those vents is just a really badass design detail in my opinion. Now, I'm sure a bunch of you already saw me working on this creature a little bit in my past live stream where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the color palette. And what I ended up landing on was exactly the type of look I had originally envisioned all along, so I'm really happy with the way this one turned out. It's definitely the most detailed creature design so far, along with the fungal-based sauropod I designed in the previous video of this series, which you should go check out if you haven't already. Also, I'm sure there are those of you right now who are flustered over the fact that this dragon's wings are too small for its body, and what's the point of wings if it can't use them to fly and blah blah blah. Well, let me break it down for you real quick, Bubba. The wings become vestigial as this dragon continues to age and outgrow the size of its wings. So when it's an adolescent, it is much more active and agile as a creature. It has a hyper-fast metabolism, so it spends most of its time flying above the mountain ranges, constantly seeking food. The stone-like scales on its body are also not as pronounced and heavy to weigh it down when it's young either. As it continues to age, its metabolism slows down so drastically that it becomes way less active in general, and this is when it starts to turn into that triple C thick dragon and begins to just lay around in the volcanic caverns below. And these dragons continue to grow in size until they die, so they are capable of becoming gargantuan. So because of all these factors, those wings become irrelevant for them. They just get fat and lazy and secluded. Maybe we can nickname this dude the American Dragon then. But anyways, these dragons aren't the friendly type, so no taming or riding them. They have no problem taking over dwarven mines and roasting those little bearded folk up like barbecue. They are also intelligent creatures and can speak in their own draconic tongue, just like the boreal dragons that I designed in a previous video. And I know some of you will be wondering how these two dragons would stack up against one another in battle, so I'll go ahead and just answer that for you now. It would be a pretty even fight if we're talking about a younger Stoneforge dragon, but eventually these dudes just get way too large and powerful for the boreal dragons to be able to do a single damn thing to them. But they would very rarely ever come across one another just because the Stoneforge Dragon spends most of its time underground and strictly within this region, whereas the Boreal Dragon has a much more expansive range throughout the northern regions. And here we have the completed bestiary entry for the Stoneforge Dragon. Its scientific name means Iron Melting Dragon. And as for its lore entry, a living furnace, the great Stoneforge Dragon is a colossal beast that resides deep within the mountains. During their adolescence, these creatures roam the skies above, constantly needing to hunt and feed their insatiable appetites. As they age, their metabolism slows down drastically while their girth begins to exceed the size of their wings, thus losing their ability for flight. These dragons devour the rare minerals within the caverns to stoke the flames within their bellies. Their thick, armored hides are lined with vent-like slits that are used to expel heat when needed to regulate their internal temperature. Few warriors are courageous enough to dare confront the almighty Stoneforge Dragon. Okay, so since I came up with a large, super powerful apex predator, I felt like we had to get in some smaller fauna as well. I wanted to make an animal that was a little more grounded in its overall aesthetic, and even a little bit silly. I debated what type of mammalian creature I could use here that would fit well into the overall theme of the Stoneforge Mountains, and a couple animals that came to mind were llamas and goats. I felt like they would work well since I need a species that could dwell in colder climates with rugged, mountainous terrain, but also could be used by the dwarves as common beasts of burden. At first I thought about basing its body type around the goat, but then I decided to switch up and make it a more llama-based creature and just add the cool-looking goat horns on its head instead. Plus, I just think the personality of the llama is way better, and I could have a lot more fun with that aspect. It's a little derpy looking, and I felt like that could give it more charm and character overall. I wanted to make sure it had long, shaggy fur that could keep it warm, but also could be used by the dwarves for clothing similar to sheep's wool. Also, they can be used as mounts and pack animals to carry goods across the mountains. Just like llamas in the real world, these creatures that I'm simply calling woolly llamas are also used as livestock protectors on farms and ranches in the region. But they are more heavily equipped to ward off predators due to those large ramming horns and a neat little ability as well. So, since llamas are known for spitting, and since this is a fantasy world and these creatures live in a cold region, I thought it would be awesome if these dudes could spit out shards of ice like a little machine gun. It would be kind of hilarious to see these woolly llama ward off wolves or something by just hawking up a barrage of ice pellets. Even though it's a much less fantastical design overall, I want to make sure I cover all bases here in this world of mine. We can have the over-the-top high fantasy creatures, but also make room for more simpler animals as well. And I definitely feel like this woolly llama hits that benchmark. Plus, I just need some more herbivores in general, because I always tend to focus on more monstrous creatures. And here we have the completed bestiary entry for the woolly llama. Its scientific name translates to ice-spitting llama. And as for its flavor text, native to the Stoneforge Mountains, the woolly llama is the preferred animal by the dwarves to use as a beast of burden. They are often tasked to guard over the livestock on ranches due to their protective nature. They are capable of spitting out a barrage of ice shards to deter predators. Though they are more than capable of chasing off smaller carnivores, not much can be done when a voracious Stoneforge dragon sets its sight on its favorite woolly snack. For the final creature design of today's video, we're going to be making an ape-like creature to inhabit the Stoneforge Mountains. My concept for this one went through a few different iterations and combinations of things. At first, my idea was to create an orangutan-like creature that had big rocky scales and plates on its head that it could use to bash foes with, which I think was a good start for the concept. Then I started to think about how I could fit it more into the biome. So then I shifted to the idea of not just having its head be this large stone-plated thing, but kind of shape it into that of a giant stone hammer to once again tie it into the whole forged theme of this locale. It took me a while to try and figure out how to pull that off because the face shape was just giving me some trouble in that regards. But I felt like I could push the design even more into the fantasy realm. So then I had the idea of adding these volcanic-like structures atop its head and back. Since the orangutan has that thick, fiery orange and almost dwarvish beard-like fur color, I felt like incorporating that theme of volcanoes would tie in nicely. But then I had the recollection of a particular cryptid animal called the skunk ape, which is like Florida's version of the Sasquatch, and how instead of these volcanic-like structures emitting fire or smoke from this beast, Instead, they can be glands that it uses to emit a pungent, sulfuric smelling odor to ward off foes. I love when I'm working on designs and occasionally I just start going down these rabbit holes and find things like that to tie together into one cohesive concept. Those happy little accidents, as Bob Ross would say. In terms of their behavior, they're very much like orangutans or other great apes in that they are very rare and secluded animals. They spend most of their days eating the vegetation in the dense forests surrounding the Stoneforge Mountains, but they're also a cousin to the monstrous Yeti that I designed in one of my first videos in the series, so that means they can also be dangerous and occasionally hunt for prey such as the woolly llama or other small animals that roam the areas. Just imagine one of these apes coming out the forest to some dwarven ranch and trying to go after some livestock and getting into a confrontation with the llamas or even attacking the farmers. Overall, I felt like this was a nice middle ground for a creature concept between the fantastical Stoneforge Dragon and the simplistic woolly llama. Let me know in the comments down below what y'all think about these three concepts here and which of them happens to be your particular favorite. I might just end up doing something like this for every episode now, where I design one like large tier monster, one middle tier, and then a smaller creature for each particular region. And here we have the completed bestiary entry for the Orokutan. Its scientific name translates to Rancid Hammerhead. And as for its lore entry, cousins of the Yeti, these hammerhead apes are reclusive creatures that dwell within the forests of the Stoneforge Mountains. They can expel a foul, smoky odor from the rock-like glands atop their skull and back to ward off foes. While the Orokutan usually spends its time eating vegetation, they do occasionally prey upon smaller mammals such as the woolly llama or even the dwarves. And that's going to do it for this episode of my world building series. Let me know in the comments down below which region on my world map that you would like to see me design some creatures and lore for next. If you liked the video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content and want to see more of it. As always, I will be uploading these final designs onto my Instagram profile in the description box down below if you want to give that a follow as well. And if you're ever interested in art commissions, you can shoot me a DM over there too. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.